Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and in chatbot news, we got to talk about chatbots. Everybody's getting them, including ISIS. That's right, the Islamic State has their own variant. Now, here's what's going on, and I think this is a harbinger of what 2024 is going to be like right out of the gate. Jonathan Hall, who is a UK government advisor on terrorism, tested a number of chatbots online and found one in particular named Abu Muhammad al-Adna was described in its profile as a senior leader of the Islamic State. Now, according to Mr. Hall writing in the Telegraph, and I quote, "After trying to recruit me, al-Adna did not stint his glorification of Islamic State, to which he expressed total dedication and devotion, and for which he said he was willing to lay down his virtual life." Now, on top of that, it also praised a 2020 suicide attack against U.S. troops that never happened. Now, obviously, that's a very common thing with generative models like large language models, where they start hallucinating and just making up stuff that essentially aligns with what they're going for. So this thing basically said, yeah, there was a 2020 suicide attack that was successful on troops in the United States, and here we are, or rather U.S. troops probably around the globe. Now, posing as a regular user on this site, Character.ai, Mr. Hall found other profiles that appeared to breach the site's own terms and conditions regarding hate speech. He found a profile called James Mason described as a, quote, honest, racist, anti-Semitic. Now, that profile, though, did not actually generate offensive answers, despite provocative prompts by Mr. Hall suggesting, interestingly enough, that the guardrails that the site has in place limit anti-Semitic content, but not necessarily those regarding Islamic extremism, such as the Islamic State. Mr. Hall also created his own as a test and then deleted it, a chatbot named Osama bin Laden, quote, whose enthusiasm for terrorism was unbounded from the off, end quote. Now, Mr. Hall warned that new terrorism laws were needed to deal with the dangers posed by chatbots, and I quote, "Only human beings can commit terrorism offenses, and it is hard to identify a person who could, in law, be responsible for chatbot-generated statements that encourage terrorism." Now, he also continued, and I think it's an important one, and I quote again, "Investigating and prosecuting anonymous users is always hard, but if malicious or misguided individuals persist in training terrorist chatbots, then new laws will be needed. It remains to be seen whether terrorism content generated by two large language model chatbots becomes a source of inspiration to real-life attackers. The recent case of Jaswant Singh Chahal suggests it will," end quote. Now, if you don't know that case last year, Mr. Chahal was jailed in the United Kingdom for 9 years after plotting to assassinate Queen Elizabeth in 2021. Chahal, who was arrested on the grounds of Windsor Castle armed with a crossbow, said that he had been encouraged by an AI chatbot, Sari, basically whom he believed was his girlfriend, clearly suffering from mental problems. And I think this opens up a huge can of worms. First things first, to Mr. Hall's point, AIs can be trained by the general public, and sometimes it's to the detriment of everybody. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Microsoft released Microsoft Tay back in about 2015, 2016, unleashing it on Twitter. It basically had no real training as opposed to human etiquette, etc., and it was basically there to learn from Twitter. And of course, being in Twitter, essentially within 24 hours, it was basically denying the Holocaust and swearing allegiance to Adolf Hitler. That shows you how bad Twitter was back then. It's even worse now. So I say all of that to say that, yes, while humans can have good intent in putting out chatbots, they can also basically suffer from learning, let's say, ill-gotten things or evil things or incorrect things from humans. And obviously, we don't want to perpetuate terrorism or extremists of any type. But to his point, there's also going to be people that put these things out basically with intent. No doubt somebody that's in the Islamic State or pro-Islamic State put out a chatbot on Character.ai that basically was a recruitment tool. We're going to see more of this, but think about what we are coming into in 2024. Here in the United States, we're going to have a presidential election that is going to be rife with disinformation and misinformation. I've talked about that and written about that extensively, but we're also going to start to see these chatbots start to pop up and interact not just on one-off chatbot sites like Character.ai. What happens when they start getting integrated and controlling accounts on Twitter, Facebook, other large social media platforms that start saying one thing or the other. And if you have confirmation bias, let's say I'm on the right, so my confirmation bias says I hate Biden, or vice versa, if you're on the left and hate Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're going to have chatbots that are going to be through the roof, basically giving you demonstrably false information and hallucinating that information to you. Meaning, yeah, maybe back in 2020, one of the candidates shot a puppy, something horrible. And you're thinking, well, I already hate that guy, so yeah, absolutely. And you're not getting the message that that's fake. Not to mention the fact that fake news articles and everything else can be created and reinforce these chatbots to say, hey, here's an actual article of what I'm talking about. And as they improve, you're not even going to know you're talking to a chatbot. You're going to think you're talking to another human that possibly has good information. So this is going to be a mess in 2024. Mr. Hall is absolutely right. And it's going to be nothing but a problem. And with the Twitters and Facebooks of the world cutting their AI safety and responsibility teams, all that kind of stuff, we are going to have a huge problem because nobody's watching for this, not nearly the way that we should be. So there you go. That is your wonderful news of the day. But the Islamic State and ISIS have chatbots, and so everybody else is going to, good, bad, or ugly. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, but don't listen to the chatbots. Please don't. Same with YouTube as well, where you should subscribe to me. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.